as I mentioned, before I get into actually, going through these standard stored procedure examples and so on, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the tool that you're using here and maybe share a couple things that in my experience, you haven't always had a chance to see yet, right? So I'm going to start off using the company database. By the way, the script that we gave you, I might call it username company. If you don't like that, you can get rid of the word username. I'm sure you talked about why we have that there, right? If we were using the central server downstairs, then you can't have two databases of the same name. So, if you use your student username there, just do a quick search and replace in the script, then everyone can have their own copy on the server, right? But since we're just using the local SQL Server Express here, it's really not needed, but I'm just too lazy to get rid of it. So there it is there. I should get around to it, I suppose, but anyway. All right, so you're familiar with the Object Explorer. I can come in here and I can see, let me just zoom in. You can see all your tables and views and so on. Under programmability, here's where you'll find stored procedures functions, right? You've played around in the Object Explorer here a bit already. So if I zoom back out, right? So I'm going to start off saying, okay, I'm going to be focusing on the employee table, right? So I can right-click employee, and I can go to the design of the table this way. Did you use the table designer, or did you do it all with create table statements? Good. That's the way you need to learn, right? But I didn't know if you were aware that there is this design tool as well, where you can go in, create a field, choose from the drop-down list, data types, check off whether it allows nulls and so on, and this in the end will create the table for you, right? Okay, but create table, you'll learn more by doing it that way. All right, so I'm just going to open up a new query window here based on my company database, so I can start typing select whatever I want. However, another option that we have, one of the built-in tools, tell me if you've seen it before or not, I can right-click and say design query in editor. Have you used this at all? No. Okay. Well, let's show you what's in this tool. Now, this is not AI. Okay? This is just a built-in tool that's been part of this forever and a day. And as a result, it's not banned even for use on the test. You're allowed to use this as well, right? So I'm going to design query in editor. So it comes up here. I can add tables, I can add views, functions, etc. Well, all I have are tables. So I'm going to start off with just the employee table. I'll add that in here. Okay? So that I can see the table and all the columns that I want. So if I check off all columns, there we go. I can see down in the bottom half here, it's writing select employee.star from employee, right? Click OK, and it puts that into my, and I can execute it, right? There we go. There's all my select star from. Now, okay, select star isn't all that useful, is it, right? So I might want it to actually show me all the fields. But if I just highlight it, go back in with it selected and highlighted into the editor, okay, then by default it even actually breaks it down now so it shows each one selected separately. I can see that down here in the select statement below. When I click OK, now it's listing all the fields for me. Good. That's a good step in the right direction. Of course, the output is exactly the same, right? Okay. Now, you know what? I want my lookup value. I want to see the department in here as well. So let me bring it up in the editor, and I'm going to add a table to the query. I'm going to add the department table. And if you look here and see, it's showing the relationship between them. Right? I can hover over it. It says inner join employee department code equals department code. Right? That's our primary foreign key relationship between the two. Okay? So that's good. So now if I want, I could also include the department name. I already had the department code in the output. Oops, sorry. Forgot to mute my phone. There we go. Click OK. And you can see what it's been doing here in terms of changing the SQL, right? So it's added department name, but the from clause now has inner join department on the primary foreign key relation. That's exactly how you've been taught to write your SQL commands, right? When you have two tables. So there we go, and I can execute it. Now I have the whole department name showing up as well as the department code. Okay? Have you used table aliases in your select statements? Yes. Okay, good. All right. So it takes up so much room. Employee dot this employee. So I can just simply go space E space D, right? And you know what? It doesn't like it so far, so I'll bring it up in the designer, and it'll fix it all. There we go. So just replace it all with my little table aliases, right? So just to show you a bit of a thing. Now, be careful here, right? One of the things that you may or may not have noticed right away, if I bring up the employee columns here, just in the Object Explorer even, look at that department code, the foreign key down there. Let me zoom for the back of the room. Sorry, I can't get it. Okay. Notice, this is a foreign key that allows null. You can have employees, I don't know, what do you call them, a floater, right? They aren't assigned to any department, at least not at the moment, right? So, how do we make sure that any floater employee is included in our output? An employee that doesn't have a matching department code. How could we change our select query here to make sure all employees are listed, whether they're in a department or not? Sorry? I can't quite. Changing the join, exactly. Yes, instead of an inner join means we must have a match across this primary foreign key relationship here, right? I can change that to a outer join. Now in this case, would it be a left or a right outer join? A left, correct, right? Because I'm mentioning employee first in the from clause here. So that's the only reason. If I wanted to, I could switch it to say department, inner right outer join employee, and that would be exactly the same result, right? So the keyword left or right is really just referring to which one you mentioned first as you define the join. Okay, that's good. You understand exactly what you need to do in code, but let me share with you how you do that in our design tool. I'm not saying you have to use this, but I think it's only fair that you know about it, right? So I can right click on the line. I can say select all rows from E. So that's the employee table. And there we go. Notice it even changes the little icon here, and down in the SQL, it is now giving me a left outer join. There we go. Now, am I still going to have 8 rows? Yeah, I am. Because there actually are no, in our data so far, there are no employees that aren't assigned to a department. But now I know my query is ready, okay, to give me the correct information. Okay. All right. So, basically, what I've got here now is the perfect information of probably everything I might need to display on a form if I'm going to look at the data for employees. So I'm going to encapsulate all this work we've done into what? What kind of database object would I create based on this query? So I can just, without having to rewrite the query all the time, just quickly access it. A view, exactly right, right? So I'm going to create a view, okay? Create a view based on our select, okay, to use in our select procedures, right? Saves us the trouble of writing our concat and everything. Oh, that's something else I probably want to do. I probably want to add an expression in here, have a summary field. I can do it at the end, it doesn't matter, okay? Let me just press enter here, keep it all nicely arranged on the screen. Okay, I might do something like that. Concatenate together the last name with a comma space and the first name. Maybe I'll call it EMP summary to be consistent with the naming conventions being used here, right? Let me just run that version of my select for a second. So that gives me last name, comma, first name for all the employees. Okay. Because of how we're planning on setting up a user interface, I know the information's already there. The client application could put it together, but it's often something that works out well for the extra overhead in our select statement here it often works out handy to have that put together for us already. And our summary fields can be more complex than just that as necessary as well. We might even use a user-defined function or things like that to do some other data manipulation to show a nice one single piece of information, something that will be helpful later on, right? Okay, so that's good. I'm happy with that query now. So I'm going to save myself trouble by getting my create or alter command ready. I don't have anything else to say but as, right? And that's where I'm going to put my query. So I'm going to cut, query, put it down here, right? Now whether you indent it or not really makes no difference. I'm in the habit of doing that. It's really not important. And I'm just going to say go to end the batch, right? That way I can carry on in the same window. So I'm going to execute that. Yay, it was successful. So, let's try selecting from it. Oh, what if I want to do it with my tool? I'm really lazy today. I can right click, go to my editor tool. Now it shows up. No, why doesn't it show up yet? Refresh. There we go. There's my view. Oh, did I? Got to click add. Right, there we go. And I can just, select everything from the view. And if I want to use this, because I'm really lazy, I could have just checked off all the checkboxes and that would have done the job as well. But there we go. So I'll just execute that. And that's nice and easy. I just go to the view and I get all the information I want. So I'm ready. I'm going to build my standard stored procedures now based on my view, right? Okay, so my first one is my most common standard stored procedure. Select all employee records, okay, all fields from the table of the view, right? So I'm going to call this procedure USP employee select all. Let me just make a little bit more room at the top here. Okay, so what's the first thing I'm going to do in my recipe? Set no count, on or off? On, exactly right. Okay, we want to suppress those extra messages, right? And then, well, gosh, I did it up here. I already have it. Okay, there's my select from my view, and that's it, right? So that will create or alter my employee select all. Now why is it, oh, I need a go after that. There we go. And now I've created the procedure, right? How do I execute a stored procedure? Execute, EXEC, exactly, right? There we go. Kind of boring. I'm getting the same data over and over again no matter what I do here, but that's the point. The point is now I can call my employee select all, and then the client application, all it needs access to is my stored procedure, my user stored procedure employee select all. Okay, we're on a roll. Our next standard one is going to be an individual record based on the primary key employee ID, right? I'm going to save a bit of time here because, this is getting a bit repetitive. I'll just put the whole thing in place. What we've added is a parameter. Now I can call it anything, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to have that name, but it makes sense. Just use the field name with the @ symbol in front, and that way your code is easier to read for yourself, okay? I mean, I could call it Fred if I wanted to, and I could still make it work, but you might as well call it something that makes sense when we look at our code, right? So that's our input parameter, that integer, And all we've done is the exact same code we had before, right, with the where clause where the employee matches. Okay, so that's good. I'll just execute that. We're on a roll. Okay. Now, let's try executing it. Anyone guess what's going to happen here? I have no data. Why? There is no employee ID 9, right? This 1, 2, up to 8, right? But I just wanted to point out here, if you look in the bottom, okay, I've lost my mouse. Damn it. Too many. Oh, okay. Got to get up. All right. There we go. Any messages? No. Okay. There's no message. Why not? Because we set no count to on, right? That's okay. We don't have a message. Our results are empty, so I can just look and see, oh, I've got no records, right? So it's pretty easy for me to figure it out. Okay, let's pick a different number, though, just to do a test. And there we go. Employee ID 7, all the information we're after for the one selected employee. Good. Okay. All right. Next would be our actions, right? For our 5 standard store procedures, the next would be the actions, right? So we're going to want to insert a new employee. Now, can we insert into the view? I'm lying, but I'm going to say no. Okay? No, we can't really insert into a view, not unless we do a whole bunch of other steps involved. So there's no point as well, right? The view is there to give us a nice collection of summarized information, but hey, we're just putting a darn employee into the system, right? So all we really need to do is insert the system, the employee. So I'm going to start off here. Create. You don't need the or alter unless you're going to run it more than once. But anyway, here's my procedure, USP employee insert, right? Now, we know we need our parameter list followed by as, right? And we'll finish off our batch once we get all the commands in there. Now, is there anything that can help me write all this? That's a lot of damn parameters to write, okay? You know me by now. I am lazy. Put up my hand. Yes, I am lazy. So I'm going to look for a tool that can help me write. The query design tool doesn't help a lot, right? It doesn't really do much for me. But there is something else that I can use that is going to help me be more efficient in some respects, or at least more lazy. If I right-click on the employee table in the Object Explorer, look at this, script table. Script table as, insert, I'm going to put it in a new query window. There we go, right? Now, that kind of gives me, much of what I'm going to actually need here. Now, for the parameters, this is kind of listing all the things right here. Look at that, it even shows the data type. Ooh, I love that because parameters have to specify the right data type. So I'm going to steal this bit of code that's inside the brackets here, copy, come over here to where my parameters have to be, and paste, okay? And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a lot of search and replace here. Oh, sorry. So I'm going to put a comma in front of that one as well so it matches the others, right? I'm going to select this text, go Control H for search and replace, and every comma and then the less than symbol, I'm going to replace in my selection with an @ character. There we go, looking more like a parameter list now, right? Okay. In my selected area, the greater than symbols, don't need them. Let's just take them out. So I'll replace it with nothing. We're almost there. These comma spaces, though, that's a bit of a problem, right? we don't want a comma space, so let me select the area. I'm going to take out comma space and replace it with just a space. Now I have all my parameters. There we go. So I'm almost ready for this. Now it's not quite right, okay, because down here I've got my parameters, so I want to basically do the same kind of thing here. I'm going to once more just put that comma in and replace comma less than in this area only. Oh, I have an extra space in there I got to take out, with the @ symbol to refer to all of my parameters. And I don't need any of this, right? I can't think of an easy way to get rid of it except highlight it and delete. Okay. Oh, okay, we aren't quite done as well. Okay. Wow, that's what I get for trying to type. You'll notice I do always a lot of copy paste because part of my dyslexia is I'm a terrible typist. Okay, so that's my set no count. Oh, it's that comma. That's what's causing my red underlining. Okay, but there's something else I'm missing here. Okay, a couple other things I want to do in the parameters. Because the only required fields are the first and the last name, it's a common practice to provide a default value for the others, right? So it's not in my in the generated code that I cheated to get, but I'm going to, for the title, oh, don't need, the salary, because these all allow null, I'm going to set default values. So that gives me the freedom not to pass anything, right, for those parameters, okay? Okay, so because those allow null, I'm going to give them a default value of null, and I'm not quite done. When we talked about a recipe, what was the other thing on an insert procedure that we said we want to do? There's something we want to return. We're inserting a new record. There's going to be a new primary key value automatically generated by the system, right? So I am going to need one more parameter here. It's not part of the insert technically speaking. It's going to be an output parameter for the new employee ID. We don't supply that as an input because it's generated by the system, but we are going to have it here at emp ID as a parameter as an output, right? So now there, this is good. Oh, I need a bracket there, right? And then the last thing I'm going to do is get that right out of my recipe, that code to return the new ID, right? So I set employee ID, or select it from scope identity where the row count equals 1. Okay, now that was a fair bit to take in at once. You know what? This is exactly the same code, but it's hard to see it all on the screen. So I'm going to just replace it with mine from my copy paste just because I've got it laid out the way I want. Okay. I didn't change anything, it's just easier to read now and it's shorter on the screen. Okay. So does that make sense? So when we're doing our insert, we have all of our input parameters providing a default value for the ones that aren't required. We have our output parameter, we do the insert, and then my select at the end to get the new generated ID. Any questions about that? Okay, we're carrying on. All right. Now, let's try it out. Okay, I'm going to do a little test script here. Okay, nothing new here. We talked about this before. If you have an output parameter, I need to declare a variable to hold the value. I'm going to call it the new ID, the new employee ID that's been created by the system. Then I'm going to execute employee insert, right? I've got all my values set up here for the different things that are required, okay? And then my employee ID is marked as an output parameter. I can then print it out to the screen, okay? And then we'll select all to see that it's there. So if I look in messages, there I printed out. Now I could have put some text in front, but I know what it is. There it is, 9. Okay, that is the new ID that was generated, right? I did get one row affected, right, by executing the insert command. That way, because we set no count to off, so we do get our message to say one row was affected. Yay, we successfully inserted it. I also printed the new ID that was stored in my variable of 9, and then the results of executing the select all stored procedure. Now I see my new record there, right? There's a couple of nulls where I was allowed to have null, and I didn't supply any information for them. And that's fine, okay? Because the system lets me do that. Any questions about that? Well, that's an example with a test as well. Just end the batch so I don't get any red underlines. Okay. Update. We can do the same kind of, I don't want to, drive you nuts by working so slowly, but I just want to point out here, I can come back to the employee table, script table as an update to a new query window, and again, I get some code here with a little bit of massaging and manipulation. I can help, but the truth is, once I've already written, okay, since the parameters are very much the same, I could actually steal code from my insert procedure to help get my update procedure in place, right? So here's my employee update, just following the recipe, okay? And then we have all our parameters here, okay? There's no output parameter in this case, right? We set no count off. We update the employee where the employee matches, right? Now, I don't have, in this case, a concurrency. There's no timestamp. So if there's not one in the table, I can't worry about adding one to my procedure, but we know it's a simple step of adding that where clause and having the parameters set up for the timestamp value if we actually had it. Any questions about the update? It's really just following the recipe for the most part. Now I've got a little test script to do an update. So I'm going to update employee 9, the new one we added. We're going to update the name to Charlie Brown. Now here's an example of passing by position, okay? The first 3 parameters are required, right? Other ones after that are all optional because they have default values. So we don't need to mention them at all, right? I can execute that and then we'll do our select all. So once again, now seeing employee record ID is Charlie Brown. So we updated the values there. Okay. And messages, 1 row affected, right? Because our update was successful. Not surprisingly, the delete is the easiest. So I'll just go get it first of all. Okay. Employee delete. All we need is the ID, the primary key of the one to delete. Delete from employee where it matches. Bada bing, bada boom. Quick test. I'm going to delete that new employee we added, employee 9, and then we'll select all. Checking messages, we get 1 row affected for delete, and sure enough, when we look at the results, we're back down to the original 8 employees. So yes, it worked. Okay. Now, that's all of our 5 standard, always required stored procedures that we're always going to do basically on every entity to prepare for our client application. Let's just for fun though, I'm going to look at a list style stored procedure, right? For a combo box, our department list, okay? We'll select no count on because we're returning data. We're just going to have the department code and the department name from department, ordering by the department name, right? So that's, the name is what will be visible in our drop-down list to the user. So that's what we want is sorted by that, okay? And then I'm going to right away execute it because there's no point not to. There we go. So that's an example of the kind of data that is ideal or perfect for a drop-down list. Now, of course, here we don't have an integer primary key for the department because that's how this table is designed. It's actually a 4-letter code, right? But that's okay. It's still the unique identifier. It's still the primary key. And that's, you know, we probably could have got away with just having that shown in the drop-down list. But, you know, it makes it a little bit more professional looking to show the full name of the department. And we can use that as the parameter necessary to identify if we wanted to, say, filter by all employees in a given department and so on. Okay. Speaking of which, we're almost done, folks. We're going to create a procedure, select employees by department, right? So here's my department code. It has to have the right data type. Now, there's a bit of a danger. If anybody actually ever came up with a department code of XXXX, I'd fire them right away. No, okay, I'm being silly. But you know, you have to have as a default or a flag value here, right? Something that would never be used in the real world. So, you know, you could actually use an empty string maybe, but it's a char4, so I went with this, right? Just be aware that there's a little bit of a vulnerability to this approach. If you ever did actually have such a department code, it could lead to incorrect results. But I'm pretty safe, and we can cover that in the documentation for the application. Never make a department. Heck, I could add a trigger to the table to say, if you're trying to create a department with this code, we're going to not allow you, right? Anyway, there you go. So we'll set no count on. There's our select where the employee date from employee data where the department code matches or it equals our flag value, right? So I'll create that stored procedure and then I'll execute it this way. First, I'll use a legitimate department. And there we are. We're just seeing the 4 employees in information systems. I can test this with each one and just see the employees in the given one. But heck, if I left off any parameter, so it's using the flag value, I get all employees showing up, right? So I'm reusing the same procedure, basically not filtering after all, just by not passing a value for the parameter itself. Okay, so I'm going to just, I have this in my copy paste file just with some comments so you can see what it's actually doing. Okay, so that finishes our demo. So as we went through and we demonstrated our standard stored procedures, I had a little fun showing you a few of the other tricks that are built in with a query design editor and the fact that you can right click and generate queries of certain types based on the table itself. So I hope you found that interesting, and it'll definitely, I think, be useful as you in your own homework are going to be assigned creating sets of standard stored procedures as well. Questions? You have a question? Oh, okay. All right.